One of the most striking differences between tropical rainforests and temperate forests like this British woodland is the huge number of species to be found in a rainforest. In 1 acre of temperate forest there may be about 4 to 8 species of trees. For instance, this woodland is predominantly oak and sycamore, with many individuals of each species in any given area. In 1 acre of tropical rainforest there may be up to 80 different species of trees. With so many species in one area, the individuals of each will be scattered, few and far between. The entire British Isles has 217 breeding species of bird, but Tambopata Reserve, which is only 20 square miles in size, has 580 different breeding species of bird. The whole of Western Europe has only 393 different types of butterfly, but Tambopata Reserve has 1,200 butterfly species, a world record per unit area. One reason for this great diversification is because rainforests are far older than temperate forests. They've been evolving undisturbed for the last 75 million years, whereas temperate forests had their evolution interrupted by glaciation 45 million years ago. As the Ice Age advanced, rainforests retreated to form forest islands, where the isolated species evolved separately. When the climate warmed, the rainforest islands expanded to form continuous forest again, but with a greater variety of species. Today, certain areas of rainforest, which are particularly rich, are thought to be the original glacial refuges. Tambopata is one such area. The growth of temperate forest trees is interrupted every year by winter, which is why the trees have these annual growth rings. You can tell the age of the tree by counting these rings. Rainforest trees, however, grow continuously throughout the year, so they do not have these rings, which is one reason why it is so difficult to tell the age of a rainforest tree. The tropical forest climate is constantly hot and wet, allowing procreation and rapid growth throughout the year. This has resulted in a speeding up of the evolutionary process of natural selection. The rainforests have not only been evolving for much longer than temperate forests, but also more rapidly, which is one reason why there are so many species to be found there today. The millions of rainforest species live together in a complex web of interrelationships, relying on each other for every aspect of their life cycles. If one is damaged, it upsets a whole chain of interrelationships. This balance is finely tuned, the end result of 75 million years of evolution, but it can be destroyed overnight by a chainsaw and a box of matches. So although rainforests are the richest ecosystems on Earth, they are also very vulnerable, with no defence against man. It may seem surprising that any given area of rainforest can be home to so many different species, but the forest provides innumerable niches where specific plants and animals can live alongside each other. Aside from the forest structure, which provides a whole range of habitats from the shady ground to the sunny roof of the canopy, distinct habitats are formed by features like swamps, rivers and lakesides. Here, beautiful heliconia or paradise flowers grow in the wet floodplain. Riversides are a favoured haunt for the scarlet ibis. You may also see the world's largest rodent, the capybara, which can grow up to 4 feet long and weigh 120 pounds. Capybaras are expert swimmers and feed on plants both in the water and along the shore. capybara could fall prey to the giant anaconda snake, the largest snake in the world, which can grow up to 30 foot long and lies in wait for prey to come to drink in the shallow water by the edge of the lake. Excellent swimmers, they drag their victims underwater, crush them, then swallow them whole. The Hawatsin builds its nest in lakeside trees, described as the world's most primitive bird because its chicks have claws on their wings, which they use to help them cling onto branches. The last bird to have such claws was the Archaeopteryx of 195 million years ago. Palm trees, which grow along the lakeside, are where the noisy, yellow-rumped caciques build their nesting colonies. They weave their nest into palm fronds. The male bird sings like this all day. He is imitating all the other birds in the forest. Part of my work as a naturalist involved canoeing visitors around Lake Cocococha, the largest lake on the reserve. We often used to go swimming. The caiman, or South American alligators, were more shy of us than we of them. But we later discovered that the lake was full of 12-foot deep shoals of piranha fish. So we never swam there again. A Brazil nut tree. The life cycle of a Brazil nut tree is a good example of the way species interrelate. Local people make money from selling Brazil nuts, so to make collecting easier, they experimented with plantations. The trees grew and flowered, but produced no nuts, because the Brazil nut tree relies on a certain bee, the euglossin bee, for pollination. This bee in turn relies on chemicals from several specific orchids which grow throughout the forest for its mating cycle. Without the orchids, there can be no bees. Without the bees, there can be no pollination and so no nuts. To this day, Brazil nuts are collected from the wild. For this to continue, the rainforests must remain intact. So buying Brazil nuts is one way we can help to promote the sustainable use of the forest. Rainforest trees use insects, bats or birds for pollination, since the species are too scattered to rely on the wind. Hummingbirds are very active pollinators, distributing pollen from flower to flower as they collect nectar. A display of the fruits and seeds of the forest. On the top right-hand side is what looks like a large coconut. This is in fact a Brazil nut pod, containing about 20 nuts arranged inside like the segments of an orange. The tree relies on a large rodent called an agouti to open the pod and so disperse the seeds. No other animal is capable of opening the hard shell, and the nuts will not germinate by themselves. Rainforest trees often rely on animals like the agouti and this coati to disperse their seeds, as wind in the understory is minimal. Marmosets also disperse seeds. These animals, however, will not enter the alien environment of cleared forest, so neither will the seeds they disperse. This poses a serious problem to attempts to regenerate a forest in large cleared areas. Any forest that may grow will have far fewer varieties of trees. It is estimated that even a small clearing may take over 400 years to establish primary rainforest. A tankarina tree. On the left-hand side of the tree trunk you can see an ant. A colony of ants lives under the bark and feeds on a glucose-like substance the tree produces. In return, the ants act as guards, protecting the tree from invasion by other insects and plants. You will soon get a nasty bite if you touch the tree, which is why the ants are often referred to as fire ants. The relationship benefits both the fire ant and the tangerina tree, so it is called a symbiotic relationship. This capirona tree rids itself of climbing plants and other infestations by completely shedding its bark 4 times a year. A tarantula. We found this one in a grassy clearing where we used to play football in bare feet. Tarantulas live to a great age, and there was one resident on the reserve called Martha. We used to entice her out of her burrow with a cockroach tied to a piece of string. She lived with some unusual companions, namely 2 small frogs. Scientists are looking into this relationship. A bromeliad, often kept as a houseplant in Britain. In the rainforest it grows in the treetops as an epiphyte, which means it only uses the tree as a support and relies on gathering nutrients from the rain and air. Organic matter is collected in a pool of water in the centre of the plant, where special cells absorb nutrients. The pool, meanwhile, is a home for frogs and insects like mosquitoes. Pineapples, a commercially grown bromeliad. At present, large areas of forest in Costa Rica and the Philippines are being destroyed for pineapple plantations. These pineapples end up in our markets. A strangler fig. This tree starts its life as a seed dropped by a bird high in the branches of a tree. Gradually, its roots grow down the host tree until they reach the ground, when the process of slow strangulation begins. Eventually, the host tree dies and rots away, forming a hollow inside, which in turn becomes a special niche where bats and other creatures live. The extraordinary buttress roots of the mature strangler fig are a typical structural feature of rainforest trees. The reason why temperate forest trees do not need such support systems lies in the difference between temperate and rainforest soils. In temperate forests, 75% of the nutrients are in the underlying soil, so the trees send their roots deep into the earth, supporting the tree well. Gradually, a deep humus layer builds up on the surface of the forest floor. If temperate forests are cleared, the underlying soil is rich in nutrients and good for agriculture. The underlying soil in rainforests, however, is very poor in nutrients. In some areas it is no more than sand. Instead, the trees utilize a nutrient cycle that operates entirely above ground. As soon as organic matter falls to the forest floor, it decomposes, and the released nutrients are immediately taken up by the trees. This process is so rapid that there is no time for humus layer to build up. A leaf may take 2 years to decompose in Europe, but only 2 months in a rainforest. As a result, the leaf litter is seldom more than a few centimeters thick. Rainforest trees, then, do not send their roots into the ground, but across the surface of the forest floor where the nutrients are. This makes them very unstable, which is why they grow buttress roots for support. This giant Ceiba measures 30 meters around. It is the largest tree on the reserve. This type of tree is felled exclusively to make plywood. We used to call these stilt palms walking trees. Supported entirely by stilt roots, they are able to gradually move to an area of greater light simply by growing roots in that direction. The luxuriant growth of rainforests is not then due to fertile soils, which is a mistake many farmers make, but due to a closed nutrient cycle which operates entirely above ground. This cycle is self-perpetuating as long as the forest stands, but if it is cleared away, the source of nutrients is also lost, and all that is left is very poor underlying soil which cannot support crops for more than a couple of seasons, which is why farmers have to constantly abandon their land to clear fresh forest. It is with some accuracy that rainforests have been described as deserts covered with trees. Rainforests grow on poor soils by constantly recycling nutrients. Rainforests grow in the otherwise hot, dry tropics by regulating their own climate through constantly recycling rainfall. Without high rainfall, a rainforest cannot exist, and the higher the rainfall, the richer the forest becomes in terms of species diversity. Whereas London may receive about 24 inches of rain in a year, rainforests may receive up to 400 inches. But up to 75% of this rain is supplied by the forest itself. Rain is absorbed by the trees, then taken up in the transpiration stream to evaporate off the leaves back into the air, creating water vapour for new rain. The forest perpetuates this rain cycle, so constantly maintaining the humid conditions it requires to grow. When the forest is cut down, this rain cycle is lost, and the drop in rainfall makes the climate much hotter and drier, and the rivers which the rain supply begin to dry out. The Amazon River is 4,000 miles long. It is the biggest river in the world. 1/5 of all the fresh water on Earth flows through the Amazon every day, and pours with such force into the Atlantic that a fisherman can scoop up a cup of fresh water and drink it 100 miles offshore. But the Amazon is fed by thousands of tributaries which thread through the rainforest. Tambopata River is one such tributary. These rivers themselves are fed by forest rains. As the rainforest continues to be destroyed, these rivers are gradually drying out, and eventually so will the great Amazon, with disastrous consequences for people who rely on this water supply far from forest lands. By acting like a sponge, rainforests regulate the flow of water into rivers and retain moisture to tide over dry spells. When the forest is cut down, this sponge effect is lost. Instead of the forest soaking up the heavy rain, it rushes straight off the land, eroding away the soil and flooding the rivers. And with no forest to retain moisture, dry spells become droughts. Deforestation leads to a loss of rainfall, floods and drought. It is only a matter of time before this leads to famine and all the associated problems deforested countries like the Sudan are having to deal with. It would seem prudent for governments to spend money protecting watersheds now, rather than spend billions of dollars in aid later trying to relieve famine-struck regions. Deforestation has far-reaching climatic effects, not only for regions that rely on the water from rainforest rivers, but also for the remaining forests themselves. Every year, Tambopata Reserve has less rainfall. Many species will not survive in this drier forest. Scientists are concerned that the loss of so much of the Amazon rainforest has already made the climate of the remaining forest much drier, changing forever the rich nature of the rainforest there. Rainforests cannot grow in a dry climate, which is another reason why it is virtually impossible to regrow rainforest once it has been cleared. The climate in cleared forest is too hot and dry for trees which usually grow in the shady, humid protection of surrounding forest, so that even if trees are replanted in a cleared area, they will quickly desiccate and die under the intense tropical sun. In Britain, it is possible to plant acorns, and in time an oak wood will grow. But it is not possible for man to recreate the complex ecological conditions required to regenerate a rainforest. On a global scale, rainforests were once thought to be the lungs of the earth, producing the earth's oxygen. But in fact, mature forest tends to consume as much oxygen in the decay of organic matter as it produces through photosynthesis. Rainforests do, however, regulate the global climate by soaking up the sun's energy in the tropics. If the dark green vegetation is removed, the sun reflects off the earth, causing a rise in temperatures at ground level, which changes wind patterns, causing a dry out as far away as the grain-producing areas of North America. Meanwhile, burning the forest is releasing large amounts of carbon dioxide, which is contributing to the greenhouse effect causing global warming, which will have serious consequences for us all.